Hey guys, welcome back to Razor RC. Got another video for you today, and this is the build review of the Tekno EB410. So I basically spent the weekend putting this buggy together, had a lot of fun building it. Overall, pretty smooth build, but I kind of want to talk about what I encountered over the weekend, and then kind of some trouble spots I found, and then kind of some design thoughts. So this is kind of a build review and also initial impressions of the buggy as it stands. So as you can see here, I've got it all painted, mounted up, everything's good to go. Electronics are set, and I'm going to try to hit the track tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. But popping off the body, let me show you what I actually put in my particular build. So I put in kind of my standard electronics, Savox 1258TG servo, Hobbywing V3.1 ESC, and then motor-wise, I have kind of a 10.5 motor I'm going to try out, test out for now, and then I might put in something different later, but this is kind of meant for my son to drive, hopefully. Although if I like this, it might end up being my buggy, but kind of a medium-sized motor. And then in terms of option parts, I did get a couple things. Number one is I did get this aluminum servo horn. Definitely recommended for every 10 scale vehicle that does not have a servo saver. You definitely want to get something sturdier. I think the plastic one's not going to last you that long. And then the second thing is I got this carbon fiber center top plate, which replaces basically a two-piece design. So the original part is basically one part that kind of mounts I guess the front center brace here with the aluminum motor mount, and then a separate piece that mounts the aluminum motor mount to this rear center diff mount. Carbon fiber piece is quite a bit stiffer, and then also ties all these three things together with one single piece. So I think that'll add a little more rigidity. Some guys are having problems with the spur gear sort of not meshing very well with the pinion and sort of stripping at times, and this spur gear is definitely something you don't want to strip. It's integrated with the center diff, so taking off and replacing that spur gear is going to require basically disassembling your center diff, which would be kind of annoying. So those are the only two parts I added. I did actually change the springs to orange springs front and rear, but that's kind of a tuning thing. So that's what I've got in my particular buggy. And then I just want to talk about the build real quick. Overall build was fairly good. Actually a pretty nice and fun build, pretty smooth overall. The instructions are nice and clear. Flipping through the instruction manual real quick, nice full color pages and steps and instructions. A couple of the parts are a little bit weird on like how the steps flow. They kind of go in like this S-shaped pattern, but then over here, it's kind of like the same thing. But then other steps, are kind of straight down, or this one, it looks like you would go from here to here, but it actually kind of goes here and then jumps down. It's just kind of weird in how the steps flow on some of these parts. Not a big deal, but I did actually find myself skipping, a partial step here and there. But overall, yeah, the instructions are very clear. A lot of text you'll want to read. Definitely a lot of tips on how exactly to put some things together, little things to look out for. Nice one-to-one diagrams on turnbuckles showing you exactly how long they need to be, as well as individual parts that they use and screws and stuff like that. So the manual was quite nice. Really the only thing I found I didn't like about the manual is it does not explicitly say what kind of wheels you need to buy. All it really says is to use, where is it here? 1/10 scale 4x4 buggy wheels and tires. It doesn't tell you, are these low-C wheels, are these associated wheels, or what. So out of the box, this fits low-C wheels. You can actually get adapters, basically +1 mm front hexes if you want to run associated wheels up front. The rears are all the same. So I wish they would actually explain that to you, but you wouldn't really know unless you, I don't know, I guess call them up or something, or you might just be ending up running the wrong wheels on your kit. But yeah, those are all kind of the good things. The plastics are nice. The screws thread in really nicely. Like the holes are like the perfect size to just give you a little extra material to thread in the actual threads and not really have to jam anything in there. You don't really have to force anything into the plastics. The plastics are a little bit on the soft side. These seem like they made some weird choices here and there on the plastic. So I think some stuff is, kind of this hard plastic, like the shock tower and stuff. Some stuff is a little bit softer, kind of like these turnbuckles. But then like the shock caps are made out of the soft material, which is, I found to be kind of problematic, because actually these shock caps are like super hard to thread on correctly on these aluminum shock bodies. I mean, like the plastic is too soft that it's almost impossible to get them on straight without cross-threading them. So what I would recommend to do is just start your threads, onto the shock body, and then just kind of look at it from like every angle. Thread a little bit more, look at it, make sure it's still going on straight, and then thread a little bit more, make sure it's still going on straight, and then as soon as you notice that it's not going on straight, back it off and start over. And that's really the only suggestion I can give for that. It will take you 10, 15, 20, 30 tries to get this thing thread on correctly. Trust me on that. But eventually it is possible. The other thing I noticed is like these bleeder screws, because the shock caps are so soft that it's super easy to strip, especially because they got these tiny little O-rings on them. That don't really give you a good feeling when it's stopped. So be real careful with those. Hopefully Tekno comes out with some aluminum shock caps, or at least a little bit harder shock cap material. Like the associated ones are a little bit stiffer, so you don't really have those problems. And I think that would rectify it. So I believe they're working on aluminum shock caps. That's probably something you want to look into, whenever those come out. The O-rings on these little bleeder screws are also super annoying. They're crazy tiny. They're probably like 2 millimeters in diameter. I mean, they're almost impossible to get onto that bleeder screw. So some tips I saw online is basically put it on the end of one hex driver, and then take the screw and then just push the two together, and then slide that O-ring onto the actual bleeder screw itself. That's kind of the only way you'll be able to get them on there. And you don't want to lose those, because there aren't any extras, and you're not going to have spares on those. So those two things I would say are kind of the most annoying things. The shocks and the shock caps and bleeder screws and that little O-ring were pretty dang annoying and a little bit frustrating. Actually fairly frustrating, especially the shock caps. The other part I noticed that was a little bit weird or a little bit frustrating was the diffs. So front and rear diffs use quite small diff cups. They're definitely smaller than what you would find on most 10 scale vehicles. So I think that's really kind of to reduce the overall diameter of that ring gear. So you have a smaller diff, smaller ring gear. You can mount the whole thing a little bit lower within the diff case. Actually, these diff cases actually have complete bottoms on them, so you can pull off the whole diff case and it's not actually exposed on the bottom, which is really unusual. Usually they extend kind of down through the bottom of the diff case and almost like into the chassis itself. But these are so small that they're mounted kind of uptight and inside these things. So I think that's kind of a benefit of the design. Smaller diff cases means they're going to be lighter, they're going to be spin a little quicker. You can probably mount them higher or lower as you see fit, and basically kind of tune that way. But the thing I noticed that was annoying about the diff cases, it's really hard to get that diff cup like seated inside the ring gear. The metal ring gear or steel ring gear is machined perfectly to the size of that diff cup, so you almost have to like jam it in there and just force it in there, because there's like no basically extra space at all. So it just kind of snaps in place with the gasket as well, and you're gonna have to line all that stuff up perfectly, because once you jam it in there, you can't rotate the diff cup within the ring gear. It seems kind of odd. I haven't seen another kit do that, but you pretty much have to line that thing up perfectly. So that was kind of weird. Just force it in there. It doesn't seem like it's gonna fit, but just jam it in there and it'll go. So those are kind of the main issues I had with the build. Other than that, it went together quite nicely. The instructions are good. Nothing really too weird. Obviously, the electronics are quite compact. As you know, probably from looking at the design, everything is up front, right? You got the servo all the way up front, the battery back here, and then you got the motor, the ESC, and the receiver like all in this tiny little spot here. The wires all kind of jammed together. I kind of need to clean this up a little bit, but there's hardly any space to mount like your capacitor, or I don't have my timing sensor in here yet, transponder. But like I have a very small receiver, and my ESC is not that small, but it's not that large either. It's a Hobbywing V3.1, and everything just kind of barely fits. So don't have too many tips other than just plan everything in advance and make sure you have everything oriented as best as possible to kind of minimize the amount of footprint you have for all those pieces. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm still gonna clean up my wiring a little bit. Like my sensor wire is like super long. You really only need something about, you know, I don't know, 2 inches long or so to get from the motor to the ESC, depending on where and how you mount it exactly. So it does fit, but it does definitely take some finagling and a lot of playing. I probably spent like, you know, 45 minutes to an hour just trying to figure out which way to stick the ESC receiver, where the wires are going to route, all that kind of good stuff. So that'll take some time, but it's just kind of the way this buggy is designed. So other than that, the build was nice. So no other complaints. Now let's talk about the design a little bit. My initial impressions, kind of looking at this buggy, having it all put together, is it's brawny. It's very sturdy looking. It's kind of over-engineered, beefy, whatever you want to call it. It's a very masculine looking buggy. I mean, everything's just kind of oversized. These arms are like ridiculous. The shocks are 13 millimeters. The shock tower is ridiculous. There's a lot of like stuff they kind of squeezed in there. Like these shock cups are actually like bolted in, so they can't come loose. They're actually bolted into that bottom eyelet. You can see kind of that set screw right there. They've got like reverse threaded screws on the left hand side. These silver ones are reverse threaded from these black ones, which are right threaded. So everything is just super massive. Even this wing is a little bit different. Like, they don't use standard mounting holes here for the wings. They're kind of spaced out wider than a low C or associated kit, so your low C or associated wings won't mount, or basically drill the holes quite in exact same spots. So I'll probably stick with Tekno wings for this kit. But yeah, like, look at these rear arms. I mean, there's like no... They're just solid pieces. So everything's very massive, except for one part, which are like these turnbuckles. They're like super wimpy, thin little turnbuckles. I think they're 3 millimeters, but for whatever reason, they look ridiculously small. Maybe it's because everything else on this thing is so large, but they look like something from like an RC10 Worlds car. I don't know, like the turnbuckles are just really wimpy. But I think they should have gone 3.5 millimeter. But anyways, not a big deal. As long as they don't break, I think they'll be okay. Battery strap is quite nice. Kind of a thumb screw here. You just pop the battery strap off. Battery kind of slides in from the side. So that was really nice. There are no side rails on this thing. Pretty unusual. Like, when you grab the buggy, like with the body on, you'll just kind of grab the body expecting something to kind of resist, but your finger will just kind of punch through the body and like go, whoa, there's nothing there. It's a little bit odd. It seems like there would be a little bit of flex kind of in that design. That's partly also why I went with this carbon fiber top plate. Reduces the flex a little bit. It does have 2 rear braces that you can kind of use for tuning. You can remove one for a little more flex, or use both for more flex. So overall, it seems like there are nice adjustments. Definitely like diff K shims. No like axle height adjustment on this kit, which I found a little unusual. Usually like associated stuff, they're basically allowing you to kind of raise and lower the chassis ride height without affecting basically where the wheels and axles and stuff basically mount on. So a little bit different, but we'll see how that goes. So overall, it looks like this buggy should have a lot of steering. I think this forward weight bias might be a good thing. With 4-wheel drive, you don't need as much weight transfer to the rear under acceleration, so all 4 wheels are going to sort of be able to help you drive forward. So we'll see how that goes. Everything I've read and heard is that this buggy's got a ton of steering, maybe not quite as much rear traction, but with all 4 wheels on high traction, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So not too much else to say. 13 millimeter bore shocks. I would have preferred 12 millimeter bore. But just kind of throwing this thing around, slapping it on the ground and stuff, it seems actually quite plush. In terms of fluids, I did change from the stock fluids a little bit. I'm running 20K up front, 30K in the center, and then 10K in rear. Basically kind of a Joe Bornhorst or Ryan Lutz setup. That seems to be kind of the popular fluid package in terms of diffs. And then shocks wise, I'm also using 600 and 650, I believe. So I actually did drill out the rear shocks to 2 millimeters. Seems like guys are running either 2 millimeter or 2.1 millimeter hole pistons. So I drilled them out. I think stock is 1.8. Apparently there's a little too much pack in the rear, so I went up in shock fluids and also went up on that hole. But other than that, yeah, the design just looks really nice. Looking forward to driving this cut, and you know, we'll see how it goes. So that's pretty much it for the build review and initial thoughts. I'm going to be driving this buggy, you know, over the next few weeks, I'm sure quite a bit, and testing and seeing how it goes. And then I still got my TLR and I still got my associated B64D, so we'll see how this stacks up to those guys. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe as always, and look for another video, probably a review soon. Take care, guys. Bye.